Operation Sindoor, May 2025, a coordinated, high-precision Indian Air Force strikes that didn't just destroy buildings, they vaporized everything that came near its targets. Even men with ranks, with plans, and men behind closed command doors. India just rewrote the entire doctrine of deterrence. For this was way beyond retaliation. You see, it was something that could not have ever been imagined. So let's go step by step through the deadliest 90 hours of modern global military history being rewritten. Welcome to the Drishtikone show, where we go beyond the noise, pierce through the propaganda, and expose the phenomena and actions that others are too afraid to touch or approach. This is not just about politics, you see, it's about rediscovering the truth. Today, we want to bring to you the story that no one has done full justice to because the details are just arriving in the public sphere. We are diving deep into one of the most significant military operations in recent global military history, the Operation Sindoor. In May 2025, the Indian Air Force executed a series of precision strikes that crippled Pakistan's air defense infrastructure and sent shockwaves throughout the globe. You do not want to miss any of this because the story we have pieced together from different sources is really mind-boggling. So please listen till the very end. The operation was obviously triggered by a gruesome terror attack in Pahalgam, where 26 innocent Hindus were killed in cold blood by jihadi infiltrators trained and armed in Pakistan. The images and the videos from that day were not just tragic, they were provocative. The Indian leadership, battered by the global diplomatic doublespeak and fake morality, was tired of measured condemnations, you see. So it made a decision. Strike back with precision, with principle, but without compromise. Operation Sindoor was defined in these clear terms. This was not just a carpet bombing campaign. It was a scalpel designed to carve out the strategic nerves of Pakistan's military infrastructure and lay the nation's military body in coma. The most important nerve to be severed was the Nur Khan airbase. But before that, let's go through some of the context to help you understand what really happened. Militaries across the globe, you see, have long known one principle of survival in the modern warfare: go deep or go down. Since the end of the World War II, as airstrikes became faster, stealthier, and more precise, the race to hide military command centers, weapon stockpiles, and the strategic nodes beneath the surface of the earth became a matter of existential necessity. To survive enemy strikes, nations began constructing highly fortified underground facilities designed to withstand not just conventional firepower, but also tactical nuclear attacks. These hardened shelters, built using reinforced concrete, steel cores, and multi-layer blast-proof exteriors, are referred to as hardened, deeply buried targets, HDBTs. To function as full-scale operation centers, these HDBTs rely on integrated HVAC systems, the heating, the ventilation, and the air conditioning, to maintain a habitable, clean environment far beneath the ground level. Sophisticated, secretive, and shielded from the skies, these bunkers represent the final line of defense in any modern conflict. Pakistan is estimated to have constructed at least 22 such HDBTs, concentrated around its most critical air bases and strategic hubs, including the capital of Islamabad and the port city of Karachi. These were not ordinary bunkers. These were a source of pride. Built with foreign expertise and shielded with national secrecy and displayed to select global allies as trophies of Pakistan's military advancement. Among the most celebrated of these was a facility beneath the Nur Khan airbase near Islamabad. This site, whose architectural design and construction inputs were reportedly shared with Pakistan under a quid pro quo deal, possibly in return for halting its nuclear cold tests in Kirana Hills, became the symbol of elite technological status within the Pakistani Air Force. In fact, the visiting dignitaries and the VIP guests from US to Islamabad were often given a curated tour of this very underground complex, a military marvel beneath the runway, built to impress both the foreign observers and the domestic top brass. The American and the Chinese generals, after inspecting the facilities, reportedly once praised Pakistan's ability to integrate command, control, and communication infrastructure indigenously. That praise was often echoed by many, but was also noted by the adversaries. These strikes were not guesses. They were the result of multi-source corroboration, high-grade intelligence, and perhaps advanced geospatial analysis methodologies like GAMET, which is geological assessment methodology for underground targets, used by only the most advanced militaries to map, locate, and characterize deeply buried enemy assets. Why is this significant? Because the blueprints of such facilities are amongst the most tightly guarded military secrets in any nation. To strike with the precision that India did at Nur Khan and Murid, the intelligence had to be nearly flawless. Each of these bunkers, constructed by different vendors, some with foreign involvement, featured customized layouts, shielding strategies, and layered blast-resistant chambers. Pinpointing HVAC entry points, control rooms, or server modules would require real-time ISR, intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance capabilities, fused with long-term signal intelligence, satellite imaging, and human intelligence. It is very plausible that India had access to partial architectural blueprints, obtained maybe through cyber operations, human intelligence infiltration, or even indirect foreign disclosures. The integration of AI-enabled satellite analytics, the electromagnetic signature profiling, and the thermal mapping could also have been further used to enhance the targeting precision. After the perceived success of the Nur Khan HDBT, Pakistan's Strategic Plans Division's Special Works Department, the SWD, undertook the construction of 21 more such underground military facilities, starting with one beneath Karachi's Masroor Air Base. Another key target, Murid Air Base, also housed a major HDBT. This one had been expanded in 2005 and 2015, most likely with the assistance of General Electric during its original design. Satellite intelligence suggests that this facility wasn't just a command center. It served as a real-time radar simulation and research site used to integrate new and legacy systems across Pakistan's air defense grid. Every aircraft collecting intelligence data over South Asia or the Indian subcontinent reportedly routed it through this facility for analysis, for calibration, and for central storage. As we look at the action by the Indian Air Force, let that context be properly understood. For if you want, you can actually rewind back to the very start and revisit the context, for it will come in handy while we understand the immensity of what the Indian Air Force really did. So let's discuss the Nur Khan Air Base attack, the nerve center that became a ghost facility. The location of Nur Khan Air Base is at 33 North and 73 East. It was earlier known as the Chakala Air Base, and it is within the Islamabad city. It's Pakistan's Central Air Defense Coordination Node, C4I Center, or Command, Control, Communications, Computers, and Intelligence. It's the brain of the integrated military response. It is said that it was constructed by General Electric Aviation, a US company specializing in the underground construction. On the night of May 9th, the Indian jet struck with pinpoint accuracy. Reports indicate a bomb was dropped directly into a narrow HVAC vent of an underground C4 facility. And the result? The personnel inside were instantly neutralized and the command center was rendered inoperable. Satellite imagery released in the days after the strike showed that the entire complex near the impact site was demolished. Far more extensive damage than was initially believed had been done. Pakistani authorities, keen to avoid public scrutiny or humiliation, chose not to recover the bodies. Instead, they leveled the entire facility using earth movers, erasing all evidence of what had once been a critical military hub. This strike did not just eliminate the key staff, it disrupted Pakistan's air defense coordination, showcasing the Indian Air Force's ability to dismantle hardened underground infrastructure with surgical precision. Let that sink in. A single bomb was dropped by Indian jets into a 45 centimeter HVAC vent, or the air conditioning vent, that led directly into the underground command facility. Not a wall was breached, not a door was broken. The weapon entered like a whisper and detonated with the force of complete annihilation. Every officer, every person, every computer, everything was vaporized. There were no bodies to bury, no limbs to identify, just a complete absence. The psychological effect would have been crippling. In a military, rank and file can be replaced, but when the senior officers simply vanish without a trace, the survivors don't just feel defeat, they feel haunted. Pakistani authorities were paralyzed. They didn't recover the bodies because they couldn't. To do so would have exposed the scale of the breach. Instead, they sent in the earth movers and buried the entire site. And with it, the evidence, the corpses, the last shred of denial. What was once the secret nerve center became the ghost story inside Pakistan's Air Force. Let's think about that again. That one detail, the vaporization of Nur Khan. The world has grown used to body counts, but there is something uniquely terrifying about an enemy who can make your leaders vanish without a trace. No funerals, no martyrs, no graves, only whispers. That's what Operation Sindoor introduced to the Indian subcontinent, a psychological doctrine of invisibility. The Indian Air Force didn't just destroy the military assets, it seeded doubt. It silenced the bravado. It forced the Pakistan to look inward and ask, where are our men? But what that also means is that there was no margin for error, and the task must have been given to the best pilot with all the data fed to the missile beforehand, including the high resolution images and pictures of the facility, especially the HVAC shaft. This is probably the first of its kind, the most unique and the smallest target hit by any air force in the entire world. The satellite imagery released during the DGMO's press briefing told a story of utter annihilation without needing a single word. A massive slab of concrete had been blasted upwards, rupturing the surface like a volcanic fissure. This was not collateral damage. This was the unmistakable footprint of a subsurface penetrating bomb detonating with such force that it obliterated everything and everyone inside the underground HDBT in an instant. The multi-layered rebar reinforced ceiling designed to withstand conventional airstrikes had buckled from beneath, violently thrust into the air by the detonation below. The very roof that was meant to protect Pakistan's nerve center had become a shattered monument to India's precision. At this particular location, unlike others, the Pakistani Air Force hesitated to clear even the debris, because doing so would have confirmed the catastrophic success of the Indian Air Force strike. They waited 4 days in silence, and then, in what can only be described as a grim consensus, perhaps after consultation with the families of the dead personnel, a decision would have been made. The dead would be buried where they fell, because there was nothing left to place in a coffin. Not a limb, not a uniform, not even a shred. Everyone inside the C2 Air Defense Center, command staff, system controllers, officer, everyone were vaporized, leaving no one alive to recount even what happened. Soon after, the satellite imagery captured a haunting scene. The entire facility had been leveled. The debris wasn't just cleared, it was erased, like a chapter torn from a book that no one would ever be able to read again. Next up, let's look at the Murid Air Base, which is approximately 150 kilometers from the line of actual control. Murid was more than an airbase, you see. It was Pakistan's drone warfare headquarters. Housing advanced Turkish UAVs, the base oversaw cross-border surveillance and targeted strikes, the quiet saboteur of the Indian security. India responded not with noise, but with precision here as well. The IAF, or the Indian Air Force, targeted this installation with Scalp EG cruise missiles, renowned for their deep penetration capability. The satellite images revealed a nearly 3-meter wide crater just 30 meters from the entrance to a fortified underground complex, indicating a direct attempt to disable the subterranean command and control facilities. Further analysis showed severe structural damage to the nearby command building. Its roof had collapsed and the outer walls were visibly stressed. This strike likely knocked out Pakistan's ability to coordinate drone operations from Murid, leaving the base non-functional for weeks after the attack. So what was left there were a collapsed command center, crushed roof supports, and visibly warped walls. This was not just physical damage, this was a digital decapitation, a break in the command chain of Pakistan's eyes in the sky. The drones didn't just fall silent, they fell blind. For weeks after, Murid was non-operational, and the message was loud and clear. India could now kill operations before they even begin. Let us look deeper. The satellite imagery after the strike revealed something very telling and very chilling. The light tone of the crater's surface wasn't just a visual detail, it was a forensic evidence. It confirmed that we were seeing an impact crater, not just a surface explosion. This means only one thing. The weapon did not detonate on the surface, it pierced through, deep into the underground structure, and then exploded, where it hurt the most. In the same imagery, a large vehicle, likely an 8-meter long 10-ton truck, is seen at the entrance to the subsurface facility, its rear end partially inside. Its presence hints at a grim task, salvaging anything, equipment, fragments, or even human remains from the wreckage. But what truly reveals the scale of devastation is this. Only one ambulance was spotted, just one, parked near the shattered entrance. That lonely vehicle speaks volumes. It strongly suggests that if anyone survived, it was probably just one person. And even that rescue took nearly 7 to 8 hours, battling through the layers of the most hardened cement and reinforced debris. Pakistan has since poured concrete over the crater, a desperate attempt to conceal the strike site from overhead observation. But the damage had already been done, not just to the facility, but to the morale of the entire force. What was once a fortified command center is now a buried wound, sealed in silence and concrete. Finally, let's go to the Bholari Air Base, located less than 100 miles from Karachi, a jewel in Pakistan's modern Air Force air defense system, commissioned just very recently in 2017. India didn't just strike here, it crushed its centerpiece. Using the BrahMos missile, the Indian Air Force tore open an 80-foot wide hole in the roof of Bholari's main hangar. And inside the hangar was a Saab 2000 ARI AEWNC aircraft, Pakistan's airborne early warning radar system, several Western-made fighter jets, critical to rapid deployment. The ERI system is the eye of the battlefield. Without it, you are blind, deaf, and alone. The destruction of the ERI AEWNC system was a huge setback. These aircrafts are the backbone of Pakistan's air defense, providing long-range radar surveillance and real-time battle management. Their loss temporarily blinded a sector of Pakistan's airspace, severely degrading its electronic warfare and surveillance capabilities. The destruction was not total. It was precisely enough to render Pakistan's early warning radar in that region completely useless. Satellite imagery from early June showed desperate patchwork repair attempts. Tarpaulins, hastily thrown over twisted metal and blown out hangar doors, have been seen. It may take months to restore that, but the confidence, that's harder to rebuild. Pakistan's strategy to safeguard its most critical military assets by burying them inside HDBTs, or the hardened, deeply buried targets, has now been exposed for what it truly was, a mirage. That illusion has been shattered by the sheer ingenuity, precision, and audacity of the Indian Air Force, which struck not only with accuracy, but with complete impunity. The latest satellite imagery obtained from the Maxar technologies confirms the unthinkable. The targeted facilities discussed in the analysis above that we have just seen have been entirely obliterated, wiped clean, erased from the face of the earth, just as Prime Minister Modi had vowed to do. Additional strikes at Sargodha and Jacobabad, both key nerve centers of Pakistan's Air Force, reveal that India's campaign was not just about destruction for effect. It was destruction by design. They weren't symbolic strikes, they were calculated decapitations, meant to paralyze air command, dismantle real-time operations, and cripple communication relays for months on end. Intelligence assessments suggest that these sites are now non-operational for at least 6 months, if not longer. One particularly telling detail emerges from a seemingly minor facility near the Islamabad International Airport. The satellite analysis indicates that a smaller C2AD Air Defense Center, Command and Control Air Defense, located here was being used to hide the scared Chief of Air Staff of the Pakistani Air Force during Operation Sindoor. A specially prepared HDBT bunker, heavily reinforced just weeks before the airstrike in March 2025, suggests that Pakistan had anticipated a longer conflict with India and was actively preparing the hidden command locations for senior leadership well before the April 22 terror attack that triggered the Indian response. So you see, Pakistan had planned everything in detail. But what good is a leader in a bunker if the command chain above him has been vaporized? With Pakistan's primary command centers destroyed and the backup facilities compromised, any orders issued by the Pakistan Air Force Chief of Air Staff would have really nowhere to go. No secure lines to the squadrons, no connections to the theater commands, no relay to the airfields or strategic response systems. This was more than a tactical collapse. You see, it was an operational disintegration. The satellite imagery reveals more than just shattered concrete. It reveals the complete absence of the systems that had been built very, very carefully. The damage patterns at the Pakistan's Air Defense Command Center at Nur Khan are not just structural. They are forensic evidence of a complete personnel wipeout. At the time of the strike, both Nur Khan and Murid's air bases, the command and control centers, were operating at full staffing levels, given the heightened state of the operational alert. So this wasn't just an ideal shift where nobody was there. It's very, very possible that between 100 to 200 officers and airmen were likely present across both sides. All kinds of like senior command, operational controllers, and technical staff And none would have been really off duty, for the Pakistan Air Force would have to be working at peak of operational alertness. So the timing of the attack by Indian Air Force ensured maximum strategic disruption. In the aerospace domain, where speed, data, and real-time coordination are everything, Pakistan's Air Force was rendered deaf, blind, and voiceless. The satellite imagery doesn't lie. It reveals an extraordinary level of operational success by the Indian Air Force, exceeding expectations even when compared with the world's finest air forces. And yet, around the world, there was a curious silence. No loud media headlines, no military briefings from the Western powers, only quiet observation and private astonishment. Because what India had pulled off in just under 90 hours wasn't just a tactical victory, it was a strategic masterclass, one that stunned the global defense community into complete silence. The only counter to it was the relentless fake propaganda that was unleashed thanks to the Chinese coordinators of the Pakistani establishment and their American friends in the think tanks and media. But narratives don't bring back those who have been evaporated into thin air. Operation Sindoor was a showcase of India's evolving military doctrine, swift, precise, and decisive. By focusing on the high value targets and leveraging advanced munitions like the Scalp EG cruise missile, the Indian Air Force disrupted command networks, impaired drone operations, and degraded the electronic warfare assets across Pakistan. The total time from the first strike to the de escalation was around 90 hours. And in that time, India didn't cross a red line, any red line. It redrew the map of acceptable deterrence. According to the multiple intelligence assessments, nearly 20% of Pakistan's air assets were destroyed or disabled. Several military personnel, over 200, were killed, actually rather vaporized. Many of them senior commanders. Communications and surveillance and tactical readiness were severely disrupted. And here is the most telling sign. Pakistan asked for a ceasefire, not because of diplomacy, but because the message had been received and understood. India's new doctrine wasn't just a response, it was about rewriting reality. Operation Sindoor changed the game, not by occupying territory, but by dominating minds, not by escalation, but by precision. It proved that a superpower doesn't have to be loud. It has to be exact, relentless, silent when needed, and deadly when provoked. This is Drishtikone, where we look deeper, where we tell stories others won't. If this breakdown moved you or helped you understand the things much better, please subscribe, like, and share. Tell us in the comments, what do you think this means for Pakistan's military future and about the Indian military future? And until next time, Jai Hind.